Hello and welcome to the United Stand. It's Sunday Night Live. You don't have to watch it on a Sunday. You could be watching it any day of the week. But we've got lots to talk about tonight. First of all, I just want to say thanks to everybody. Big landmark for the channel today. We've gone past the capacity of Old Trafford, well over 70. I think we're into 76,000 now, which is fantastic. People can talk about 75,000 landmarks and 50,000 and 100,000, but I think when we started this, our big target was to try and get above a bigger capacity than Old Trafford. So thanks to everyone. I always say it's your channel, so we share that success tonight. To bring the mood down, though, let's talk about Marouane Fellaini, Manchester United captain. I'd said today on the watch-along we would revisit it. Not really about the captaincy. You may be frustrated about that, but the start of the show is really going to be, is Mourinho's obsession with Fellaini a good or a bad thing? We'll be discussing that with my guests Ross and Alex in a minute. And as I look at some of the comments you've sent in that you wanted to talk about tonight, some people want us to talk about United and how Chelsea, City, Liverpool would have beaten that Sunderland side 6-0 today. Why didn't we? We'll discuss that. Where would we be if Louis van Gaal was still in charge? That's from Liam Halliwell. So the lads can start thinking about that, and so can you lot. And I think there's a few other things, but one of the other ones I want to talk about as well is why are we struggling to play football, string passes together, when we've got people like Pogba, Herrera, Mkhitaryan and Zlatan on the pitch? We scored a good couple of goals today, but so many times it broke down. Is that just because Fellaini slows us down? I don't think it is, but we'll revisit that. So first of all, let's get into it then. Marouane Fellaini, captain today. We sort of touched on that with Ross in a minute, so I'm going to let Alex go first. But Alex, the reason I'm starting with you is because Ross, fantastic as he is, he wasn't here last season when we were talking about Van Gaal. And I remember time and time again on a Sunday night, and a lot of you old timers will as well, I remember time and time again saying with Manchester United that when Fellaini gets picked by Louis van Gaal, it's like we're playing with one arm behind our back. If he would just take him out of the team and play Mata and Herrera, we would be a better team. Are we in that situation now where, again, we can see what the team should be, but we're playing with one arm behind our back every time with Fellaini? And also, what I want to say is, I think today we've witnessed an iconic moment from Mourinho that I don't quite understand why he'd want to associate himself with it. Because I would put today up there with Moyes' 81 crosses against Hull, Van Gaal's Phil Jones on corners, and now Mourinho has done Fellaini captain. The floor is yours, lad.
I thought, because I was obviously linking it in the chat, the team lineup, and then that Fellaini was captain, and no one was believing me because of I just got it off someone on Twitter, and then to be fair,
did you see Jamie Redknapp's reaction?
Yeah, just laughing, just like shaking his head.
I don't like Redknapp, but I did say this to Ross before. When you can tell a lot about your team selections by the way your rivals react to it, and Jamie Redknapp was told, and he laughed. And he went, "Are you joking? He's not a Manchester United captain," basically. But go on, Alex, it's on for you.
What he's done it with is because Matt has been given the captaincy 2 or 3 times as well, is just by how long they've been at the club. So that's all I can think of. That it's really the same how Smalling somehow.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
The odd game, which Smalling definitely doesn't strike me as a Man United captain either. And Mata is a brilliant player, but I don't really see him as a captain. But the weird thing is, you think Zlatan was PSG's captain for all those years and stuff, so he is an actual leader on the pitch. It does seem weird, especially with how close Zlatan and Mourinho are, that he would give it to Fellaini. But I think it's just because if it's the oldest person that's been with the squad, then you don't cause arguments or tension or whatever, and it'll probably be a little confidence, or he was hoping it would be a confidence booster to Fellaini to make him play better. It didn't really turn out that way, but I think that's just why he was doing it.
And talking it in a more general thing, because I'm starting to keep an eye on the comments, and people are saying, the captaincy thing was ridiculous. I mean, he was trending number 1 on Twitter. I'd say the vast majority just can't believe it. But I think I don't know why I thought that. That's a very good point, Ross, that Alex has come out with there. When you think about it, he has used Mata, he has used Smalling, and I think Fellaini probably on the pitch today is the only player that's been there the longest. I'm trying to think of anybody else who's been there longer than Fellaini, and I don't think there is.
The only one that would be De Gea, but obviously he didn't play.
Yeah, so in fairness, I don't think it's the right decision. I think it devalues the captaincy of Manchester United when you give it to somebody like that, and let's move it forward. into his actual performance. Marouane Fellaini's just made a contribution of £2. He says, please stop hurting my feelings. Sorry, Marouane, we're a fan channel and we want to talk about this. But my where I'm coming from this, Ross, is that I'm happy to say it. I said it under Van Gaal, so I can't not say it under Mourinho. I fear that his obsession, which is the point of this first topic, will hinder Manchester United. I don't see how we can win major trophies with Marouane Fellaini as part of the team.
Well, he has got 100% win ratio as captain for United, so there is always that plus side to it. But yeah, I agree with what you just said about devaluing the captain's armband. I think that's what it does. The Smalling thing, given how well he played under Van Gaal, I could see a progression for Smalling to potentially being captain. I think he's regressed this year, so I think that's way off. But I could see why he was getting it. Juan Mata was a bit strange, but Fellaini, it just never... I mean, like you said earlier, from going from being booed at Old Trafford to then being given the captain's armband, it's just bizarre. And there's players like Herrera that fight week in, week out for United. Pogba was poor today, but I just think going forward is a future captain of United. And to bypass them two particularly and give it to Fellaini, in my eyes, massively didn't just devalue the captain's armband, like you said about Jamie Redknapp and rival fans. It kind of devalued the club and just leads us to get, us fans to get trolled on Twitter even more, because all we'll get all week is, you support a club that has Fellaini as your captain, and there is no comeback to that in my eyes.
I'm going to be blunt with you both, and I'm going to be blunt with the live comments, because I think this is the fundamental part of this opening topic. And somebody's already said, where would we be with this squad with Van Gaal? We are going to touch on that. And I really want to touch on a very important thing about the way we're playing football. And that's probably the most important topic of the night. But let's get the Fellaini one done. I'm going to be blunt with this. Get comments in as well. Alex, if Fellaini continues to play for Manchester United as much as he has done under Mourinho, and let's not forget, he started the first 3 games of the season. He only got taken out of the team when we got comprehensively beaten by Watford and Man City. Then he worked his way back in again. I saw something I actually watched Schneiderlin play for Everton today, and I just thought, he is playing the same position Fellaini played today against Sunderland, and I cannot see how that didn't work out, really. But, we've got to trust the manager on that. But I just... And Liverpool are the only team to have won at Everton this season, and the first thing that came to my mind was we won at Everton this season, apart from an idiot who gave a penalty away in the last minute. But Mourinho's obviously going to keep using him. Can we be successful with him consistently playing in a Manchester United first team as he is? We don't seem to be able to go 2 or 3 games without him being starting in a game. And as I said in the week, I tweeted this out. The best run of results we've had in the Premier League this season was 6 wins in a row. Fellaini didn't play in 5 of them, and the game against Borough, he played for an hour and we were losing 1-0, we took him off and we won 2-1. So our best run of fixtures have been without Fellaini, our best run of wins in the Premier League. Our win ratio's gone up slightly now with him in the team to 40%, but it's 58% when he doesn't. But despite all that, the stubbornness of Mourinho is that he is going to persist with him. Can we be successful? Can we win titles with a player that no other team in the top 4 would touch?
I think it's more a matter of personnel at the minute. Like, Carrick seems to be going into his twilight years with his age and everything, and not putting up the performances that we have known him for, even last season. And then with Mata being injured, so we kind of were forced to play like that. The only alternative would be is if you were to play like, I guess, Mkhitaryan out on the right, and then just go to that 4-2-3-1, and then play Lingard out on the right, and then Mkhitaryan through the middle, which is obviously a alternative. But like before, when Pogba was playing his best football, it was when he was in a 3-man midfield, and Carrick was there at the back protecting him. But when Fellaini's playing in this 3-man midfield, I can't even really nail down like where he is, like what sort of position he's playing in. He doesn't really hold his position, and like it's just frustrating. There was a time in the game, in the first half, I think it was, that we got on the break and was like sprinting, like I think it was Shaw like laid it off to someone. I think Zlatan flicked it back to Pogba, and they were like playing this really fast attacking football going towards Sunderland's half. Then one of them squared it to Fellaini. He stopped when everyone's running and then just played it backwards, and it just cut out the whole attack. And it's just so frustrating to watch. It is, like you say, playing with 10 men. He does have his uses, but next season I'm he won't be a regular next season, but I think for the remainder of this season, that if we do go far in the Europa League or whatever, I think Fellaini, we have to accept, is going to play pretty much every single game.
The worrying thing is, I remember saying exactly the same a year ago, and here we are. Some good comments coming in. Whoever's asking about Januzaj, you can ask it as many times as you want. I'm not talking about Januzaj tonight. I don't want him back at the club, and they've got more than enough to be talking about other than him. Paul Prentice says, Fellaini has the passing range of a 12-year-old. I think that's a bit of a compliment. But Ross, I was thinking about this earlier, because obviously we are a fan channel. We've got to try and see both sides, and I do back Mourinho. So what I try and battle with sometimes is, obviously Mourinho gets paid millions of pounds to manage our club, and I'm not really a stat man. So, saying, the win percentage is much lower with Fellaini in it, I know there can be lots of reasons behind that, but I actually think the telling one is 6 wins in a row with Fellaini not playing is the best run of our season. So why he can't see that, I don't know. But what I always do struggle to see, and I don't necessarily think he was the worst player on the pitch today, but he was pretty bad. And when I watch him play, I do analyse it probably a little bit more than other players, because, like Alex said there, the movement of the ball is so slow. We were talking at half-time today. There was a position where we were attacking down the right. He's facing Lingard, who's basically holding his hand. All he's got to do is pass it 5 yards in front of him for Lingard to run onto it. Then Lingard's running at the fullback. And despite being so close to him, looking at him, and under no pressure, he plays it 10 yards to their left-back. And you think, that, as a one-off incident, anybody can do that. But it's consistent. His passing ability is awful. His movement on the ball is awful. He's very slow. Apart from the odd flick on and a little bit of a tackling here and there, I don't understand why he's in the midfield. I mean, can you think, because we've got to be fair, Mourinho knows more than us, obviously, he must do, but what is it that Mourinho thinks he brings to our midfield? I mean, if you said it yourself, well, I'll tell you what, you can talk about where you would like to see him play and if he's going to play. But are we missing something here? Because the Fellaini bandwagon's kicked on again. People love him. We won, whatever. But genuine. It's not a witch hunt. I really don't see what he offers that Joey Barton wouldn't offer us. In fact, I think Joey Barton can pass the ball better.
Now, there is a bit of light banter saying, that we did win today with Fellaini in the team and as our captain. But it is turning us into a banter club, things like that. We need to get off that, because going forward, you hit the nail on the head. Will we win next season with Fellaini in the team? Absolutely not, if he's playing in that position that he played today, or even in our starting 11. I always say this, and I think he has got there is a role that he can play at United, and he could probably play it quite well, but Mourinho just doesn't seem to want to use him in that role. Well, there is that, but even just on the bench, coming off 10 minutes, playing further forward, flick-ons,
I agree.
it could work, and it could work in Europe as well, but playing him, like you just said, playing him where he is today, slowing up the play is spot on, Alex. I mean, and I've never, ever seen a midfielder in my life, even playing sort of 11-a-side pub team football, pass to a player and then run at him. I mean, he just closes off all options in midfield for 1-2s when he runs at who he passes at. I mean, it's bizarre, but I don't blame Fellaini for that. I really don't, because he does try his best. He's not a great passer, like you said. Why is he playing there? I find it bizarre, and I back Mourinho, but I said it in the watch along. Some of his decisions recently are starting to baffle me, and I don't want that to happen.
I tell you what, though, I think somebody said this is the Fellaini roast. In a sense, it is the Sunday roast of Fellaini, but Ross has said this numerous times, and it's very true, and I should clarify it more and more. He doesn't pick himself. He doesn't bully Mourinho to give him the captaincy. That was the whole point of that question there to Ross, is that what are we missing that Mourinho sees? Because it's so abundantly clear that he can't play midfield. And I'll come back to this. I guarantee you that if Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs were offered Fellaini, Darmian and Lingard for free, they'd say sod off. They would. Definitely Darmian and Fellaini. They would not want them. So why do we use them? I mean, I don't want to bring Lingard into it. He's well worth £100,000 a week, and you're an idiot if you think he's not. I'm joking. But comments here. Rosie Lee, I can't enjoy the games when Fellaini plays. Boring, side to side, slow, no movement, waiting for a big elbow and cards to come out. He has improved that aspect, to be honest. But when he's playing for United, I want United to win. But I'm just hoping when he gets the ball, he can actually find the pass. Widham says the sole reason Fellaini is in the first team is because of his height. That's all he has. I agree. Michael Schwartz, Mourinho is in a romance with Fellaini. That's why he gets picked. Mourinho must see something in training. I think he trusts... that is, to me, Alex, and I want you to mention Pogba, because I know you're a big Pogba fan. He got a lot of stick today. But first of all, these people, we see it all the time on the United stand for the last 3 years. Oh, the manager, trust the manager. We had it with Van Gaal. You don't see what he does in training. Do I really give a shit what he does in training? It's what he does on the pitch, and we see that.
Yeah, it must be something to do with training, and it's no coincidence that Moyes loved him, Van Gaal loved him, and Jose loved him. I thought when we got saying like, oh yeah, now finally Mourinho's in, that he's going to be gone and all this, and my friend who supports Chelsea was like, no, trust me, Mourinho will love Fellaini, and I don't know if it's because he follows instructions and follows what he's going to do, but he's just a limited. Pogba, I've kind of just ignored everyone, just slating him all the time. He plays better in a three-man midfield, and yeah, you could say he was in one today, but not the style of three-man midfield that he's accustomed to, like when he had Polo behind him or when he had Carrick behind him and he was putting in better performances. He's under a lot of stress, and that was another thing, because I was thinking about him being a good captain as well, like Ross said, but then I think that would put even more pressure on him than he already has on him with the price tag. But I thought he played better in the second half. He did make some good passes, but I think the microscope's on Pogba after every single game, and like if he misplaces one pass, people are on his back, so he is under a lot of pressure, which is unfortunate, but I think you'll see the best football out of him next season. But the thing that pisses me off most is that people are like going on about like, oh, what a waste of, like United fans saying he's a waste of money. The same people that were saying that would probably say the same thing about De Gea. Then look what happened there. Vidic in his first season, Ever in his first season. It takes some players more than one season to adapt to the Premier League. And yeah, he did play in England before, but not to this level in the Premier League. He made like 1 or 2 appearances off the bench.
I must admit, I find it very hard to even talk about Pogba. I know he wasn't good today. I know he's not been great for many games this season. But I like Alex. I think next season he'll be better. And I've seen what Pogba can do, and he's just not doing it at the moment. But I do think he will do. And I've always been indignant towards the fee anyway. It just doesn't bother me. It's not his fault. And somebody just said there, why do you get on Fellaini's back and not Pogba's? I could give you 100 million reasons, but the reality is one can play football and one can't. Rosie Lee, I agree with you. Fellaini's hair is deceiving. If he cut it off, he'd actually be about 5'3". Pogba looked clumsy, says John Morris. Remember, it was his first game back from injury as well. And let us know in the live comments if you're having problems streaming. Damon Matheson is. I know YouTube are messing all sorts of things around at the moment, so if you are having problems, let us know. Jose,
can I just say as well quickly on Pogba as well, is that he didn't really have much of a break in the summer. I know it's not an excuse, like with fatigue and everything, and how Zlatan's played every game, but you have to bear in mind Pogba got all the way to the European Cup final with France. He's played, I know he was injured for this international break, but played all of them. He's played virtually every single minute for United that he's been available in. And like, I'm guessing, I don't know if the stats are like what the exact stats are, but I'm guessing he does a lot more running around than Zlatan does every single game. So it is hard. And I know he's 24, so it's no excuse, but he hasn't really had it. He didn't have a summer break, really.
Good point. Luke Bolton says, people saying that Fellaini was decent, yet we were playing against bottom of the league with an extra man. He wasn't decent today. I don't know why people are saying he was decent. I could give you 5 examples of him playing pretty awful balls and tackle. He wasn't decent today at all. I don't think anybody was decent today. I think Luke Shaw was fantastic. I think Zlatan had an off day. I mean, people wanted to give him man of the match. BBC are very, very good. They gave Luke Shaw man of the match, and we gave Luke Shaw man of the match 10 minutes before the end. So Luke Shaw was man of the match. But Ross, what I wanted to ask you is, Jose, Andrew Ellis has been on part of the United stand on the live comments for a long time. Don't worry, folks. I know all your names. You might not always get shout-outs, but I do recognise all your names. Andrew Ellis said that I was Jose out from the start, not because I dislike him, just because he's finished. It is interesting that. I mean, I'm behind him. I think we all are on the United stand. But he had a very bad finish at Chelsea. They down tools and he was losing week in, week out. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the Fellaini thing, but I think everything sort of pulls in together. He's quite haphazard. Alex, when you said, when you were talking about him at the start of the season, you said it's all right having a big squad, but Mourinho won't use it. He'll find an 11 and he'll use it week in, week out. We don't ever see that. He obviously has a Fellaini obsession, even though he's not a stupid man. He's living in a hotel away from his wife and kids. He obviously would be keeping up with social media or the media, and he will know that a lot of his his Fellaini obsession. He will know it's not popular with the fans. He will know that the Lingard contract wasn't popular with the fans, even though I think he had no choice with that. He will know that people, Pogba's not been as great as he could have been. And like Alex says there, the obvious thing for Pogba for me is to put him in a midfield three, to sit Carrick there, to play somebody who can play all sorts of good passes, put Herrera alongside him who can do a lot of the work, and let him have freedom. And I do remember him doing that in a couple of games this season. I remember his debut against Southampton, he had that. And he was running at people. And I remember his waxing lyrical saying he's one of the best midfielders in Europe because he can actually do what Gascoigne used to do years ago. He commits midfielders, he runs at them, and then when he goes past them, the opposition are in all sorts of trouble because they've got to leave somebody to go to him, and that's when he can have the shot or find somebody. That's disappeared. Why is Mourinho not accommodating Pogba as well as he, in letting him have that freedom a little bit more? Because we've got the players to allow it.
Yeah, for the first time in my sort of life as having Jose Mourinho as manager, I am starting to question his decisions a little bit. And I think you said it a few shows ago. It's only right that we question his decisions. You can back Jose Mourinho, but we're not yes men as fans, and we have our own opinions. And I'm not going to agree with everything. And the thing that I'm trying to weigh up in my own head, and I haven't made a decision on it yet, to be honest, is did we get Mourinho in hoping we'd change the man? Because I think that's what a lot of United fans thought. We sort of thought that he might change, he might play the youth, he'll play attacking style. And it's becoming abundant that no one's going to change Jose Mourinho. He's his own man, and we've got who we bought into, to be honest. He's making rash decisions all over the place, like he's done his whole career. And I'm just coming to terms with that, because I was kind of deluded in the fact that I thought he'd change his managing style for Manchester United. I thought we were a big enough club for him to adapt to that, but he's not. He's Jose Mourinho, he's stubborn. He's going to make Fellaini captain, and we're just going to have to deal with it as fans. But the proof in the pudding will be trophies. And if he does win Europa League this season, all this Fellaini nonsense can all go out the window, because I'll be happy with Europa League and the EFL Cup, whatever they're calling it nowadays. So it's a way up. And I think from now on, I'm going to be criticising his decisions, and he needs to kind of prove himself to me, because I haven't gone off him, but I'm starting him to not blindly back him as much as I used to.
Sage Mark says this hate against one player is getting annoying. We all understand he's not good enough, and a lot more United players aren't too. The manager have to settle for what he got. Sage, I think that's a really immature comment, to be honest, because we've actually explained and we're working through a process. You start off with one player on the United stand and you work through the process. So we started with Fellaini, we've gone to Pogba, we worked to the manager because he picks the team. We're then going to work to tactics and why we're not doing things, and we'll talk about Mkhitaryan, Herrera and everything. So stick with it and you'll start to understand the show a little bit more. But a good point there, Ross. I back Mourinho, but I back my boss at work, I back my wife, I back my mother, but I question every bad decision they make, because that's life. I respect them, but I don't just spend over and take every decision they make, because that's not right. So look, people always go, how can you back the manager but then question what he does? Well, that is life, isn't it? But Alex, you said, like I said at the start of that conversation, that you said that we've got a great big squad, but he'll use the certain a certain set of players. And I think Ross makes a good point there as well, that he's been very stubborn. There's decisions he could have made that would please us as fans. I mean, we've been here longer than him. We've already had 3 years of Fellaini. This is year 4. God, we've already had 3 years of him. Our opinions on him are based on those 3 years. We've not seen anything in him for 3 years that he can become a good passer of the ball or somebody who can move the ball around. The also the Darmian thing. I mean, we've seen him a lot. He's not really good enough. As much as I tried to hope that he would be, he's not. I would have played Jose Mourinho today. But so one, I want to ask you about, why do you think he's not been able to establish his first 11 and play it week in, week out? Do you think Mourinho has evolved? But like Ross said there, has he been given this job on false pretense? Because I remember January time, there was this love letter that he sent where he was like, give the job to me, I will use the youth, I will play the right way. And I think at the start of the season, that was happening. Some of the football we played was really good, but we were missing chances. At the moment, and somebody said it on the watch along today, since the League Cup, we've not played well. We are grinding results out. We're not playing well. And that sort of comes into what I think is the most important topic tonight. Why aren't we playing well? Who's missing today? Nobody. Why are we not playing well? Why are we not creating chances anymore as much as we used to? All goals today, apart from the last one, were very good, sort of individual out of nothing goals. We're not creating chances anymore. We're not playing good build-up play anymore. I've heard people say, "Oh, it's because of Mata," but that's nonsense. Mata helps, but he's not really been. We've played without Mata. So, what is it that's going wrong with United at the most crucial point of the season? Because that's not Fellaini's fault.
Yeah, I think in terms that was weird that he did always find an 11 and then he'd stick with it, and then with here he hasn't really done that so far. But I think it's crazy to say in April and right near the end of the season, but I think he still doesn't know with this current team who his best 11 even is, to be honest. I think he keeps chopping and changing it, and then if we get like how Carrick was a mainstay, Carrick wasn't in the team at the start of the season, and then we had that blip in form, and then we put Carrick in, went on those good run of results, and then Carrick got taken out what was it, the Liverpool game, whatever, where he got subbed off at half time. So I think he still doesn't know his strongest team in that regard. But it is a strange one. You could also look at it from this point of view of in the season he won the Premier League with Chelsea recently, the second time around. Once he hit January, and he's I think they were like 7 points clear or something. He's like, okay, this is the business end of the season, and he has to just see it out. And I think they were saying it on TalkSport, but I don't know whether I haven't actually seen the quotes. But they were saying about how he's having to do like what needs to be done to get through these games, even though Europa League is the priority. So I don't know if he's telling them not to use as much energy or whatever as they would be, like with the pressing and everything, and with the team selections he's doing to just keep everyone fit for the Europa League and then go for it in the Europa League, because he obviously sees that as our best chance of getting into the Champions League next season, which I know we're not Arsenal and whatever, that we don't see that as a trophy, but obviously with the Europa League it would be a trophy, and for our long-term success we need to be in that Champions League, not just for the Adidas money but for the prestige and for the players that we can bring in off it to improve the squad long-term.
Yeah, quite a few of you watching. Please do drop a like on the video. It'd be nice to hit 500 likes while we're live. So just one click and that's a like done. Ross, me and you played football. I played quite badly when we played before Christmas. But in relation to Europa League's the priority, so don't overexert yourself in this. Regardless of that, that shouldn't really affect how you move the ball around. In fact, in some ways, you should move the ball around a little bit better because you're a little bit more relaxed. I'm amazed. I mean, I'll keep coming back to this. For me, if I was the manager of Manchester United, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, I'd focus on the Europa League, and my team would be De Gea, Valencia, Rojo and Bailly, Luke Shaw, Carrick, Herrera, Pogba, Mkhitaryan, Martial, Zlatan. You play that in every round of the Europa League, and I'm guarantee we will win it. I'll guarantee you now he won't play anywhere near that team. He probably won't use that team ever. But the reality is, he picks the team, but there's still players within that team like Pogba, like Herrera, like Mkhitaryan, like Zlatan, Lingard. They're not playing well. They're not playing well. And I said this a couple of weeks as well. The most important thing is, even if the result had been the same today, if we played well in that second half, we were talking about it at half time. Build confidence to take into... Because it was a great opportunity against 10 men. There's a load of space, more space than normal. Pass the ball around, get some confidence, and we take that into the rest of the season. And we didn't take that opportunity, but I don't understand. I don't understand why it is. I mean, I know that, going back to Fellaini, I know he slows us down a little bit, but when the ball does get to Herrera or Zlatan or Mkhitaryan or Pogba, the responsibility is theirs then, and they can play little triangles or whatever between them, but they're not. They're not. Have you got any theory on why that is?
I don't. I just think they're just in a complete poor run of form, and I don't think the chopping and changing of tactics, they're going from 5 at the back, from going to 3 in midfield, from going to 4-2-3-1. It's all changing. Personally, a lot of successful teams, or every successful team, has a left winger and a right winger. And we know who it is. We know it's, Bale on the left or on the right for Real Madrid, and it's Neymar on the left for Barcelona. Who's United's left winger? Could be absolutely anyone. We do not know going into any team lineup. It's the same on the right. It's the same with midfield. And I just think that is starting to affect the team now, because none of them, they're almost... You get to know how someone plays as a 3 in midfield, which was our best run of form. get to know that position, then it changes for no reason. Probably because he stopped playing Carrick. And do you know what? Long term, I would stop playing Carrick because he's obviously not going to be here next season. But we need to find a replacement for him as soon as possible and just get the team into that motion. Because what's going to happen in summer is we're going to go back to the three in midfield, and Mourinho will be having the excuses that there's new personnel and we're training in a position that they don't know. I'm just sick of excuses. It needs to happen now, and the trend needs to happen. It's a great point as well, Mark, today, and I tweeted it out. 2-0 up, 10 men. Why don't we give Twanzebe a debut? What harm would happen to that? Why don't we put Jose Mourinho on? And again, it's stubborn Jose going, oh no, I'd rather play the senior players. Yeah, it's great that Martial come on. It's great that Rashford come on, but why not see these? Give him his debut. It would have made his absolute day. But no, he just sits on the bench again.
I mean, we didn't have Mourinho before. I remember him when he was manager of Chelsea, and he was, very good. And I didn't like him because you don't like big rivals who were doing well. But now that we've got him as our manager, I knew he was stubborn, but I think his stubbornness against his own fans is quite eye-opening. Really, it's almost like he's a very driven individual, but he clearly doesn't want to take on what fans think at all. In fact, in some ways. And if he wins things, great. But it's like, we've done the Fellaini thing to death, and we know that the vast majority don't want him in the team, and he picks him, and that's very stubborn. But on the youth, he knows we want to see Twanzebe and Fosu Mensah especially playing more. 6 minutes in the Premier League is a disgrace at this point. But he won't do it, and he won't do it because he's stubborn about it. But he knows it's an easy win, but he won't do it. He seems to want to take the harder path, and I hope he's proved right. I really do. But as Dave Willett says, I believe Jose is struggling with the Jose way and the United way, and I think that is a very, very good comment. He's not doing it the United way, but if he's not going to do it the United way, he's got to get the results. And at the moment, and that was going to be my next question, Alex, how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 for both that we will win the Europa League or get top 4? I mean, I've got to. I mean, it's not my. I'll give my point in a minute. But where does your confidence lie on that? And I've got to give a bit of a positive here, because if, and fingers crossed, he will do this, he goes with Luke Shaw at left back. We get Valencia back for the first time in probably not just Mourinho's reign, for the first time in bloody years. We'll actually have a good balance of a right and a left back. Probably since the days of Gary Neville and Patrice Evra, because we've always had bit part players there. But that would be a real positive. But we've got to get playing well. We're not playing well at the moment. I think Chelsea next Sunday is going to be a very, very interesting game to watch, to just see how good we are. Anderlecht first, but how confident are you?
In terms of the Europa League, I'll be able to judge better after we've played Anderlecht. Doesn't matter. I know that away legs first, but just to see how we're doing against these other teams. Like, we should be comfortably winning the Europa League. I think we're favourites by a landslide to win it, but top 4 is going to be hard. Obviously, we have Chelsea at Old Trafford, which Kante no doubt will suddenly get scoring boots on, like he has done every single time he's played. Both times this season that he scored have both been against United, but they take us as their cup final like they always have, and they'll be up for it. I mean, with Spurs as well playing how they are, it's putting pressure on Chelsea, so that could make them be even more motivated. I think if we lose to Chelsea, I think we can pretty much say top 4 in the Premier League is over. It's already going to be a huge ask. I think we need to win like all 3 of our games in hand just to get up like level with Liverpool, and I think City as well are on similar points. So it's a huge ask. It is kind of in our hands because we do have to play the likes of Spurs, City, Arsenal, which could give us an advantage. But it is a massive ask. I think our main key to getting in, I think the next loss we get in the league, we need to just rest all our key men for the Europa League. I know it is putting all your eggs in one basket, but we've messed up too many times with the draws throughout the season, not just the recent ones with Everton and West Brom, but there's so many. The Burnley one, the Arsenal one, just so frustrating. So I think one more messed up result, if it is a loss, then I think we just need to go full out for the Europa League, which we're easily capable of doing, but we just need the likes of Zlatan and Pogba to be on their game for it.
In fairness, Mourinho said that today. He said after the results yesterday, yes for Liverpool and yes for Spurs. It was like, if we didn't win today, it was no, and that would be the end of it. But we have done, so we've elongated that ability to do it. I mean, my head says that Chelsea next week, he won't want to lose to Chelsea because they've treated him quite badly. But I can't see. Let me just take some comments before I finish that and pass it to Ross. Keoju's says passing is horrible. It seems like they don't do any passing in training. Tyrone Williams says Mourinho is very similar to Louis van Gaal, I'm afraid. Mad Marcus says, can anyone name a match this season where our build-up player has been fluent and fast? I can. Leicester at home, West Ham at home, Burnley at home. We drew 2, so people just think they're bad results, but the football was very good. Couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. The midfield 3 was Herrera, Pogba, Mata, and we could have done that today. Herrera, Pogba, Mickey, but we don't. We put Fellaini in there and we put Mkhitaryan on the left. But the formation, we have got the players to do it. Jose's too much of a safety first manager, says Andrew Ellis. We don't have a style of play, says John Morris. And Pogba takes too long. Why is Fellaini loved by all managers and always played? Yeah, we can't answer that. And Aidan Landsberg said Mad Marcus Leicester at home, which was a good performance, as bad as Leicester were. But yeah, Ross, I mean, where Chelsea next weekend, and the same question really, where's your confidence in relation to us winning the Europa League? Can we beat Chelsea next week with the team that Jose... I mean, I suppose a lot of it comes down to, I'm very confident that we can get top 4. No, I'm not. I'm very confident we can win the Europa League if he picks the right players, because we've got the right players. But I've got no confidence that he's going to pick the right players. And if he picks the team he picked today, and no disrespect to Lingard, I think he's a good squad player, but he's gone from being a good squad player to being picked every week. And the same with Fellaini. I think if you put those players in the team, we won't beat Chelsea next week, and we won't be in the Europa League for long enough to win it.
I think the only worry, I think Europa League we have to win, and I think it would be a shock if we didn't. The only thing that worries me about that competition is the actual final. I think over 2 legs, most teams in that competition we should be beating over 2 legs, and Jose Mourinho is a 2-leg master. But I'd like to get someone like Lyon over 2 legs as opposed to in the final, because on their day, Lyon are phenomenal, and in a final against a United team that I saw today, you know, I wouldn't even put United down as favourites for that game, to be honest. So I think the draws are going to be huge for that, and I'd rather get the difficult teams out of the way. We've had it so easy. I mean, Anderlecht, isn't it? They're no pushovers, but it's a lot easier than some of the other teams in the draw. As top 4, I don't think so somehow. But then again, I know we keep dropping points. I know this weekend everyone didn't, but when we drop points, everyone else seems to as well, and it is a difficult league this year. And you're going to touch on it later, but so I'm not going to give too much away. But like you said about sort of where it would be if it was a Van Gaal team, you know, given the improvement in the league this year, I think it would be drastically worse.
Michael Fletcher, in relation to your comment about that, what you're going to, yes, I am. And Lingard's done better than Martial this season, says Kunal Sen. I wouldn't argue with that, but Martial's 10 times the player Lingard is, and that's down to the manager for not getting the best out of him. Mensa could have been given 10 minutes today, says Blake 7. Just a little touch on there. I know we're playing Anderlecht on Thursday before we play Chelsea, and there are some good teams. Besiktas, Lyon, Celta Vigo, Ajax, Schalke. On their day, they could. I mean, the reality is, if you watch the Sunderland game today, there were points when Sunderland should have scored, and Anachibi could have had a penalty, and he could have scored as well, and it would have been 1-1. The red card for me was. I know why it was given. From the angle of the referee, it looks worse than it was, and Herrera will always take a tumble. But I don't. You know, I've heard somebody compare it to Rojo's 2-footed tackles. Well, whoever that idiot is, and I'm not going to name their name. There's a big difference. One tackle had 2 feet in it and the other had 1. I don't think it was a red card. Some people think it was a red card. Fine, but it's not. It was definitely not one where you go, that's a definite red card. If you think it was, fine. If you don't think it was, fine. But we won, so whatever. But in relation to I'm very nervous about Manchester United, because I just think if we were playing good football, I'll be very confident. But we're not playing good football, and I don't think he's picking the right players. But we've just got to take it game by game. And I agree with the lads. I think the Europa League is where it's at. but we're going to have to play a lot better. If we continue to play like we've played over the last month, we will be disappointed in the summer. And that's not being negative, that's being realistic. George Carl's been confident though. He says 100% we will win the title. And the manager selects on form, not potential. Hence Lingard's been playing more than Martial, says Kunal Sen. Again, Kunal, I'll come back at you. That's a failing of the manager. It's a very big cop-out to say, I'm just picking players on form and Lingard's the best in training and Fellaini's the best in training. That is a failure on the manager to not have Martial playing to his potential, to not have got Schneiderlin to his potential, to be not using Carrick to his potential. It's a cop-out. We've got the players and they should be doing better, which leads me perfectly in, thank you to that. Obviously, Anthony Martial played superb under Louis van Gaal, outfield player of the season. Same with Daley Blind. I think it was actually between those two for the outfield player of the season, with De Gea obviously player of the year again under Van Gaal. For all his criticisms, he did use the youth. I think Fosu Mensah probably would have played about 20 times by now under Van Gaal. The football, granted, would not have been as good. Where would we have been, Alex, if we'd kept Van Gaal at Manchester United this season? Do you think we'd be worse off in relation... I mean, I think it's fair to say the football would be worse off, but do you think we'd be worse off in relation to where we are for trophies, etc.?
Well, I could guarantee you could take 28 goals out of our season for how much worse we'd be, because Zlatan definitely wouldn't have come because he's gone on record saying that he hates Van Gaal, and so you'd be taking away our main goal scoring threat. There's no guarantees that Martial and Rashford, I mean, it's more likely that they would be better than they are at the moment, but you don't have guarantees of that. The players are already unhappy last season, so they probably would have gone into this season continuing to be unhappy. He wouldn't have started Pogba, Mkhitaryan or Bailly as well. So, like, if you look at this, well, although having said that, in his first season he brought in, like, regardless of how it turned out, he did bring in Di Maria and Falcao. So at the start, he did attract top-class talent, but I don't think that season, without Champions League and everything, that he'd have been able to. So I think we would have been a lot worse off. I think, as Ross said as well, what people are, like, when they're going on about all these points tallies and stuff of Van Gaal next to Mourinho, go look who won the Premier League last season, and then look at, it wasn't just United that were useless last season. The fact that Spurs were, well, they actually ended up finishing third in the two-horse race, but that Leicester and Spurs were the top two teams in the league that season, over the likes of, take United out of it, over the likes of Chelsea, City, all that, then that just says it all. And the current champions were like, 13th last season, so you can't compare this season to last season. That was just a blip that everyone just happened to be worse than they normally are. And I think it's been it's more of like a top 7 mini league with Everton as well coming back into it, and then everyone else below is kind of just out of it. But it's so much more competitive this season than last season.
Just before I come to you, Ross, I'll feed some of the live comments so you can give us what your thoughts about where we'd be if we still had Van Gaal in charge. Geezer G says Martial's a one-hit wonder. I disagree with that. But Gary, who's an Everton fan who joins us on the live comments quite regularly, he says you would be in the top 4 if you'd kept Van Gaal. We would have been out of the Europa League, no EFL Cup, and no signings, says Sahil. With Van Gaal, we would be 7th at the end of the season with no trophy, says Vahan. We have to win the Europa League, we just have to. Hirsch Puri, you're spot on. I think Tony, exactly, okay. What? Cams, what? Apparently I've called Full-Time Devils host an idiot. I don't watch Full-Time Devils, I don't know what you're on about. We only good this year because of our defensive, Ray, Cole, Brown, Amore. Please tell me, Louis van Gaal, I'm trying looking for Louis van Gaal comments. Louis van Gaal would be challenging. Jose will challenge next year. Hezron Lewis. Give us your thoughts, Ross. I mean, what I would say is, and I know this categorically, if Van Gaal would have stayed, I agree, we never would have got Zlatan, which would have been a big loss. But we were going to sign Sadio Mane, and he can say whatever he likes about he went to Liverpool, whatever. That deal was pretty much tied up. He was coming to Manchester United. Mourinho didn't want him. He ended up going to Liverpool. So Sadio Mane instead of Zlatan.
Yeah, do you know what? I think if we'd have kept Louis van Gaal as our manager, I think we'd have Ryan Giggs as our manager right about now, because he wouldn't have lasted past Christmas. The football was... What we forget about Van Gaal is he didn't only not create sort of 1-2 chances a game that we created. Luckily, we scored them. But we were leaking goals galore the other end, and he had he basically played defensive football, but yet still managed to leak goals. I thought his tenure at United was awful, and Alex was right. The league was absolutely atrocious last year, and the fact that we didn't capitalise on that was more than depressing. And I think if we had Jose last season, we'd have been challenging for that league title, let alone not finishing in the top fourth. I think that's probably one of the worst achievements of any United manager, and I'm even including David Moyes into that. So, yeah, I think it'd have been absolutely awful. And you're thinking back to that, it makes you happy again that we've got got Mourinho, because the football has changed and it's nowhere near where it needs to be. But in comparison on a chart to what we were playing last season under Van Gaal, the improvement is huge. There's just so much more work needs to be done, and just goes to show you how backwards the club went over 3 years of not just Van Gaal but Moyes, the signings, and I can't just blame the managers in that. You've got to blame sort of Woodward, because he was sort of fresh in signing players. It was just scattergun. Where now under Mourinho, he's almost coached Woodward into making more acute signings and being better in the market. So I think give Jose the summer and give him a second season, and I think we'll be somewhere.
Yeah, there's a great comment here from a Chelsea fan, which I want to come to next. I'll just quickly answer it. I've thought about it, and I'm not different to any of the lads, to be honest. I think a very good point by Ross and Alex as well. Do people forget what it was like under Van Gaal? I mean, I was ranting after every game, and I don't like that. I don't like to rant. I will be critical about decisions, but I'm never going to rant about Mourinho, because I wanted him, and if it fails, I'll have to fall on the sword with him, because I wanted him. I didn't want Van Gaal. I didn't want Moyes, and I did get very frustrated by it. And to be fair, some of you don't want Mourinho, and you've got every right to moan about it. But I will fall on the sword with Mourinho, because I wanted him to come to the club. Van Gaal I wanted rid. I thought we should have got rid of him at Christmas, not waited the whole season, and I think we could have got top four. I think the club waited too long. But the reality is, I think it's totally wrong to compare Mourinho to Van Gaal. Mourinho, the football's been far better, and that's very important. But you look at this season, and I don't think we're playing well at the moment. I think the last month's not been good enough. But the points we've dropped between, especially at home, they're into double figures now. And when you've dropped double figure points, then it really eschews where the reality is. You know, was it something like 200 shots on goal and 5 goals? Not good enough. And that's players. That is players. So I think the league is a false position. We're in the Europa League still. We've won the League Cup. We were knocked out the FA Cup because of a dodgy referee. I think our league position is unrepresentative of the football we've played this year. I don't think we should be challenging for the title. I'm not going to say that. I think we should be 3rd or 4th based on the amount of points we've dropped, which, to be honest, we'd all take. I think the only reason we're all getting a bit nervous, and I am as well, is we might come out of this season with no Champions League football. And forget the trophies, that was the most important thing to come out of this season with. That's why we're getting nervous. That's why we're getting a bit critical. But you know, the obsession about Fellaini is wrong. Some of his selections are wrong. I agree with that. But realistically, it's not been the bad season people are trying to portray. It's just we let too many points go in the league, and everything else is quite good. But James Bowman is the comment I wanted to read. And Mo made a good point. I'm not going to dwell on it, but he says Robbie Savage, who always gets it wrong, so he's obviously made a good comment here. He says Robbie Savage said that United would be mid-table if you take away Zlatan and his goals this season, which is very, very true. Very, very true. And James Bowman, who's a Chelsea fan, he says, if you're telling me that you're nervous about Man United, where are you getting this optimism that you can beat Chelsea when we can shut you down once we've scored and we can counter-attack? So very, very confident Chelsea fan. All I'm going to say, I'm so grateful for this comment. I'm going to feed it into Alex and Ross for their thoughts about Chelsea United. I know it's a week off, but I think it's going to be a great gauge of where we are. But for all those press members and fans who live up the backside of Conte, I just want to say one thing. It's a 3-part point, right? 1, why are Chelsea winning the title this season? Well, we've played on average a game every 3 days, and they've played a game on average every 8 days. That's a massive, massive advantage. 2, they signed the player that won the title last year for Leicester, Kante. That's 2 points. And 3, he inherited the champions who downed tools for Mourinho and got him the sack, and then decided they were going to play properly this year. I think Conte's had the easiest job in football, and he will be judged like we will be judged next season, Alex.
Yeah, definitely. I think you take Kante and Hazard out of their side, and they're very, very average. I really haven't been that impressed by them. Hazard's obviously been brilliant. I think he's like the best dribbler, arguably, in the world, and he is starting. He's playing well in that new position that he's been playing in. But when you look at their team, like the likes of like Alonso and Moses as their like wing backs and stuff, and then David Luiz and Gary Cahill in defence, they're really not. They're really not that good. I don't know why Conte as well doesn't play Fabregas a lot more than he does. He seems to stick with Matic, who seems that he was good in that season that they won the league. But then aside from that, he was awful for them. And Fabregas is way better. But long term, I don't fear them. I think, all these managers will be judged by their second season. Obviously, Klopp already is in his second season. But he did inherit, like you said, the champions who down tools. And their main striker has been going on again about how he might leave and how he was gunning for to leave the club last season. So if they lose Costa, it'll be interesting to see who they bring in. But yeah, it completely depends how we set up on Thursdays. If I know obviously because it's Chelsea that he is going to take it seriously, even if we were completely out of the top four race, because he'd want to beat them. But I just want to beat them as well because of how disrespectful their fans constantly are acting like Mourinho at the end of the day is their greatest ever manager, and they're acting like how Arsenal fans are acting to Wenger as well. Like it's the equivalent of us like booing Fergie. They really are a disgrace. So I'd love for us to beat them, but they always take United as their cup final. We have like the only team in Premier League history that we haven't beat more times than like we've lost to is Chelsea, so we don't have a good record against them all.
I agree with you about that, by the way. I've got a different point for Ross, but I agree with you about that. I mean, it baffles me, absolutely baffles me how they treat Mourinho. They sacked him, and then they boo him when he comes back. You sacked him, he's your best manager there's ever been. He's done absolutely nothing wrong, and you boo him. I mean, it just basically demean, like we've demeaned the Manchester United captaincy today, you demean your whole club by booing Mourinho. I just find it absolutely baffling. I mean, what future or soul is there in a club when you turn your back on your greatest bit of history? I mean, we're built on our history, right the way back beyond Munich and everything, and we're very proud of it. And you just boo it. I mean, disgraceful. But I tell you what, Ross, I will bloody love it if we beat them, in the words of Kevin Keegan, next Sunday, because I've been saying this all season. And I don't care what anybody says. I know our biggest loss in the league was Chelsea, and it was our last loss, 4-0. And I know we beat Spurs 1-0. But the best team I've seen United play all season was Spurs. And I know we beat them. And I think Harry Kane is a bit of a big game bottler against United. He never turns up like Lukaku for some reason. But Spurs are the best team I've seen all season. Not just against us, but consistently. I don't think they're going to get to catch Chelsea, unfortunately. But if we can beat them next year, next month, next week, and give them an opportunity. And I don't care what Mourinho does. I'm sure he'll play it down and say the priority is the Europa League. But in the back of his mind, he will want to beat them for the way they've treated him this season. And I really hope we do.
Yeah, point number one, I think Mourinho's a better manager than Conte. I just think that his players, Jose's players at United down tools for him at Stamford Bridge. I don't know what went on there, but it was a disgrace. And Jose can't affect what happens on the pitch when they go out. If they're not up for it, they're not up for it. Like you said, reffing mistake in the FA Cup. I think we were well in that game. And the ref completely ruined that game. And this game, I think, like you said, we beat Tottenham. I think we battered Arsenal, and we conceded a late goal for Giroud, which never should have happened at Old Trafford. We battered Liverpool at Old Trafford, to be honest. But then, they scored and just defended for the rest of the game, and we were lucky to get a draw out of that. So, Chelsea at Old Trafford, they cannot think they're going to get an early goal at Old Trafford. Absolutely no chance. It will be United possession, and it will be Chelsea defending. And yes, I do fear the counter-attack, but I think Jose will have a trick or two up his sleeve for that game. And like you said, Mark, there's no way he's going to. That'll be revved up probably even more than the EFL Cup final for him, because he will not want to lose that game.
I think it's interesting whether we're going to get top four or not, and I don't think we will. I still think we've got a few good games left where they'll be like cup finals: City away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away. I really want us to go and do well against those. But there's a good comment here, Alex, as we draw to a close. I remember this, and I don't mind. If I get things wrong, I'm more than happy to say when I get it right. there's a Chelsea fan saying I'm a hypocrite because I said that Conte would be lucky to get top 4. I vividly remember saying it at the start of the season, and I remember you saying that they would probably be good for the title. And I remember saying you're an idiot. They're not going to do it. But I probably should have done my research a bit. That's who they lost from the title-winning side that Mourinho lost. No, but that Mourinho won with nobody. They weren't in Europe. They signed Kante. Actually, it was idiotic on my part. It was absolutely obvious that they were going to be. It was on a plate for them, a bit like Liverpool, really.
Yeah, it only took signing Kante and Hazard to actually turn up for them to obviously improve leaps and bounds, and that they both did happen. So I think they will obviously be a threat next season. I don't want to write them off. It seems weird. I have actually seen Chelsea fans complain about it that once they won the Champions League, Abramovich kind of lost his ambition for them, like in terms of signing players. Because I think this summer United will be trying to bring in the big names again. I think City will be bringing in the big names. Spurs will be building on their success. Arsenal, it's up in the air. Maybe Wenger will finally realise he has to spend big, or maybe they'll get a new manager in who does so. It's going to be really competitive again next season, and it'll be interesting to see how Chelsea do. Because, like I say, I think they're just basically Hazard and Kante. Costa, obviously, on his day is brilliant, but he seems to only turn up for half a season. So, yeah, with them 3 players.
Very quickly, let's do this. It's not United related, or it could be. Who would be your player of the year? So I'll give you a couple of seconds to have a little think through it. I think it was Tyrone said it would be Kante. I heard a very good point, I think it was from Souness, saying that it should be Zlatan, because why should a team be judged on their performances and where they are in the league? And if you take Zlatan's goals away from United, they would be in big, big trouble. But for those who say Hazard, I would never... Daz, you keep asking me if I'm a Forest fan. No, I'm not. And you're very late. You're very late to the party if you're thinking you're going to sort of wind me up about it. We've been there. We've done it a million times. But the Hazard, I will never ever call him a top class player anymore. I lost total respect for him because I think he was one of the best players in England for sure. But how? It just says a whole lot about a player that the whole of last season he was just turd because he couldn't be arsed. And I think that says a lot about him. And then this year he can be arsed and he's one of the best players again. So I wouldn't give it to him. For me, it would be Kante. I think I'd give it to Dele Alli, Ross. I don't know about you.
I'd give it to Marcus Rojo, to be honest, mate. But
it's an amazing improvement.
No, do you know what? It's one of them, and Joey Barton's been banging on it about all season on Twitter. It's so easy just to. It's almost you just give it to Kante because he runs about a lot, and he is phenomenal, and I think he has improved Chelsea. But on the overall balance of play, like you just said, and who's exciting to watch, and who really changes a game, I think it is that. I was trying to think of a Tottenham player, and I couldn't think of Dele Alli, and it's not Harry Kane. Yeah, I'd go with Ali, but I do think Hazard's in with the shout because out of all of them, on his game, I mean, the goal against Arsenal for Hazard was phenomenal, and on his game, he's probably the most exciting player that I'm watching right now. I agree that he's a bit of a mercenary, and I don't like him as a player, as a person, but as a player, he's very exciting to watch.
I'm with Kev McGee. He's a little cretin. But, I mean, if we're talking Chelsea players, I would give it to Kante because I watched them play against Liverpool at a time when Liverpool thought they were going to win the league, Alex, around February time. And Chelsea weren't very good that game. I think, in fact, it was Hazard who dived to get a free kick for Luis. But Kante was like two players. You know, Chelsea sort of started bottling it in the Anfield atmosphere like all London clubs seem to do. And Kante was just like two players. So if I was going for a Chelsea player, I would go Kante. Although, interestingly, I don't know, they can't be United fans. I saw Mane's name jumping up a lot on the live comments there.
I think Mane is a decent player, but not player of the year. But I have actually seen people say that as well. But I think the thing about Zlatan is so ridiculous because why do they say it about, where would United be without Zlatan? Okay, where would Everton be without Lukaku? Okay, Spurs did play well in Harry Kane's absence, but the likes of Son aren't going to score 20-odd goals in the season, are they? where would Chelsea be without Costa? Where would Arsenal be without Alexis? It's like ridiculous to say it. I think in terms of pure ability, when they're actually on their game, I think the best three players in the league are Aguero, Hazard and Sanchez. But Aguero hasn't really been at the races much this season. Alexis obviously wants to leave Arsenal, it seems. And then Hazard has been good this season. But I would go with having to choose Kante, because it's no coincidence that Leicester win the league with Kante, in my opinion, was their best player last season. And then they fall apart. Obviously, they revolted against Ranieri, all of that. But I think they would have done a lot better if they kept Kante and then Kante come in. And like you said, it's been mentioned loads of times that he's like two players.
Yeah, I'd agree. If they are Liverpool fans, and I know we've had a few Chelsea fans and we get Everton fans on here, despite the banter, you are all welcome. We all love football, and obviously we get passionate because we're United fans, and we are United fans first and foremost. But you are all very welcome, and we are sometimes fair. And I would say that it would be Ali or Kante for me. I'd be happy with that. But Ross thinks Hazard, so that will please some of you as well. Really enjoyed the show. Really good show. I know some people say it's negative. You really don't understand what the United stands about. We're not there. We're not here to just sit back and find the positive in everything. We've got to be realistic. And if at the end of the season we haven't got Europa League football because we've played Fellaini every week, then if you watch the show tonight, you'll think back and go, you know what, they did speak about this. We collectively spoke about it. You on the live comments spoke about it. So you know what, I always believe, I'm a firm believer in life, that the time to look at negative, the time to look at weaknesses is when you're at your strongest, and we've won today. So, to sit back and go, "Oh, we've won. Let's ignore everything that went wrong with it," would be wrong. We didn't play that well. Mourinho even said it. It's not us. Mourinho said it wasn't a great performance. So, and I have got concerns, but hopefully, fingers crossed. And we've got a big game on Thursday night and on Sunday. So, bring it on. Tomorrow night at 8:30 will be Skype Goldbridge. That's your opportunity to Skype in and Snapchat as well. That's United Stand MUFC at 8:30 tomorrow. Please do drop a like on the video if you enjoyed the show, whether you're a United fan or not. Get involved. It's something to do on a Sunday night, every Sunday at 8:30. So please do drop a like, whether you agree with it or not. I'm sure you enjoy watching the content. So there we go. Thanks to my guests. Give your Twitter shout outs, lads. Very good guests, and nice to get the split screen finally working.
I'm at Hazza90. Please give me a follow.
Okay.
And I'm at AXAS23. And just quickly, I wanted to add, in terms of signing of the season, or player of the season, sorry, I think that if you were to go with who was the best summer signing of the whole season, it would be Zlatan comfortably.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? And you know what? Let's finish on a positive. I keep saying this. You name me a manager who has a 100% record from their signings last summer, and I'll call you a liar. In fact, you name me a manager who's got over 70%, and I think Mourinho deserves a lot of credit for that, because Bailly, Pogba, Mkhitaryan and Zlatan, well, Pogba I know you could argue, but the other three I think have been fantastic. And whether you think Mkhitaryan's had an in and out season or not, look at some of the goals he scored. Like today, that second goal was out of nothing, and that's I think he subs him off too much. I think he can get something out of nothing, just like Zlatan, and he needs to play 90 minutes more often. But thanks everybody for watching. I really enjoyed the show. Thanks to the guests. Back tomorrow night at 8:30. Big week for United. It's going to come thick and fast now, and hopefully we can get another couple of wins in the next week, because it'd be great if we could. Speak to you all very soon. Thanks for watching.